Decades ago, Dave Straub was just a kid with a wagon selling handmade candles door to door with his father. And today, that childhood memory has evolved into Cork and Candles, a high end BYOB experience that's taking over the Philadelphia scene and aiming for many more locations nationwide. Joining me today are the founders themselves, Dave, a hospitality visionary, and his son Kenny, who left the high stakes world of private equity to help his dad turn a family story into a sophisticated financial engine. I'm Ishita, and this is the Profit Audit. We are coming to you today to go behind the scent and look at the real mechanics of experiential retail. Dave and Kenny, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Give us a 1 minute version of what is Cork and Candles and who usually comes through the door at your retail.
Yeah, so Cork and Candles is an experiential candle bar. So we believe we're in the hospitality business. So sometimes when you hear candle, you might think, well, we're a candle shop, we're a retail candle shop. But for me personally, candles are really just a metaphor for people coming together to have a great time. So our tagline is where friends gather. So the vast majority of our guests are women, ages 24, 25 to 34 to 45 years of age. I often joke with the men and the women that come into the store. I said most of our guests are women and smart men.
We see there's really four reasons that we see people come to Cork and Candles. They're either coming to celebrate a birthday or they have a large celebration. They're coming for a date night or an anniversary, as you might expect. We have folks that come in for just a gathering with friends, again, to our tagline of where friends gather, or they're doing a girls' night out, so a group of 5 or 6 women. And then we have seating for up to 60 people in our stores. And so we do a lot of large party events. We do corporate team building events. We do baby showers, bridal showers, those types of larger gatherings. But it's really those four reasons that folks look to engage with Cork and Candles. And all four of those reasons are around spending time together. We do sell retail. So some folks may wander in and buy a retail candle, but we lead with the experience first. And that's a way to bring people into the store, but also to drive repeat business, to keep them coming back for more.
So, from what I understand, there are multiple layers in the business. There is definitely an experience that you are providing, but at the same time, it is a retail as well. So, how complicated is it to run these different nature of business that you have?
To Dave's point earlier that we're in a hospitality business, if you are someone that is hospitality focused, you enjoy gathering with people, you enjoy hosting parties, if you enjoy spending time with others, we feel it's a really easy business to run because you're really focused on providing that hospitality. If you're someone that is deeply introverted, would prefer to be in the back making candles or not interacting with groups of people, it's probably a really hard business to run because we may have 150 people through the store on a Saturday. And if that is draining to your energy, it's going to be really difficult. But the operations, back to franchising, have been dialed in so that we can run the systems and playbooks that allow our franchisees, if they follow those, to run a simple business. And then it becomes a consideration of where does your energy come from? And if you're someone who enjoys spending time with people, who enjoys being around those groups, we feel it becomes a really easy business and a really fun business to run.
Yeah, so I think if we kind of draw a picture for you of what happens when a guest comes in, that will really demonstrate the ease of running the business. And to Kenny's point, we've created playbooks so that what we're doing works not just in the first location, but the second location, the third location, and et cetera. So it's really important that we've created these playbooks. So if you and a girlfriend or a group of girls came in, you would be greeted at the door. We would know that you're coming because the vast majority of our guests come as a result of booking the experience online. So we know when you're coming, how many people are coming. Our POS system has designated which table that you're going to be seated at. And so when you walk in, you're greeted, then you're seated. We bring a bottle of water to your table. If you brought a bottle of wine with you, we ask if you'd like a wine chiller. If you say yes, then we bring a wine chiller to the table. Once you're seated and settled, then a chandler is a professional candle maker, greets you again and takes you into our scent library. We have over 45 different scents in there. They give you some instructions and then they leave you alone. We find that our guests will spend 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes as a group in the scent library choosing their scent. It's a huge part of the experience. But as the owner or as an employee, I'm not with you during that time. I'm not working during that time. And then when we see everyone come back to the table, you're greeted again. We discover what scents you chose. We go and get those fragrances. You measure them out. You pour them into a vessel, and then we bring hot wax. You stir it together for about a minute, and then we take it away to a cooling station. It takes about 18, 20 minutes for the candles to harden. Your candles go home with you. But again, the interaction of our staff with you is small. So if you think of a restaurant, you take an order, now it goes back to a shorthand cook. They're cooking, they're bringing you butter, they're bringing you bread, refilling your water glasses. It's very much involved. And so we find that it's pretty easy to train our staff to serve our guests. And so if someone is looking to get into this business, if they want to be a franchisee, it's a really fun and easy business to learn and run for two reasons. One, it's fun and easy, but two, we've created the playbooks to help everyone be successful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see that there has been a lot of thought that has been put into this process. It seems very different from whatever I have experienced personally at workshops where candles are made. So you're right, it does sound like hospitality more than the candle making workshop experience itself. So yeah, it totally makes sense. So Dave, just to build on that, this business has a 3 generation origin story at its core. So how much of the way you actually run the business today is shaped by watching your father sell candles back when you were 12?
Yeah, so there's a critical element that ties back to my father. So my father was an artist. He worked in many different mediums. So wax was just one thing that I saw my dad do, but he did woodworking. He worked with metal. He worked with fabric. And so that creative gene has made its way into the business in two respects. When you walk into the door at our stores, you'll see some furniture that I've made. And so we've looked to create a certain vibe in our store out of wine barrels. And so I've done some woodworking within our stores. But there are two different types of experiences that someone can do when they come into the store. They can do what we call our signature experience, which aligns with what I just described, going into the scent library, choosing from the 45 different scents. We bring the fragrance oil, the wax. That's our signature experience. The second is we have a candle of the month where we run a class and we're with that group the majority of the time. Unlike the signature experience where it's a lot of hands off, but a class is very much hands on. And so we'll teach people about the wax and the properties of the wax so that they can make really unique candles. So if someone were to go to Instagram and just search for Cork and Candles, they would see a lot of videos and photos of different types of candles that look like pies, cakes, ice cream sundaes, ice cream floats, banana splits. And so it's a very fun and creative element of our business that also differentiates us from standard candle making. And so that's probably the primary aspect that made it from my childhood into our business is this class element of making our novelty candles.
Okay, okay. So yes, it has your heart and soul in it, the whole business, which makes sense. Now, looking at the numbers, if you're comfortable in telling that, where did your revenue land last year?
So I'll let Kenny cover that. And because we're franchising. Legally, we can only tell you what's in our FDD, franchising disclosure document, but I'll let Kenny cover the numbers.
Sure.
Yeah, and to that point, the numbers are published in the FDD. So the last fiscal year that we published, we disclosed our King of Prussia location and our Center City location. King of Prussia was our first, is our flagship store, and Center City was our second. The King of Prussia store did over 620,000 of revenue. The Center City store did a little over 400,000. And the big distinction as you think about profit management and really running the P&L is rent and what that does to revenue. So rent in the King of Prussia location is much higher. It's close to 20% of our revenue, but it's in a really great, densely populated area. It brings a lot of foot traffic and visibility. Our Center City location is only about 12% of revenue. And so there's a little bit more profit left over, even though revenue is smaller in the Center City location. But with the smaller rent, the less visible location, that's part of the driver in revenue being a little bit lower.
Got it. Okay. So I was going to build on this itself that, like you yourself said, the fixed cost in this business, like the renting, the staffing, these are higher against the variable parts of it. So what does a bad week actually cost you, and how do you think about that exposure? How do you combat?
Yeah, so in any business, you're going to have a mix of fixed and variable costs. We find that because we're a hospitality business, our variable costs we feel are pretty good. The cost of goods sold, excluding labor, is around 25%. So the gross margin, again, excluding labor, feels pretty high at about 75%. And then you've got the things that you're pointing to that you need to cover. You've got to cover your labor expenses. You've got to cover your rent and insurance, your utilities, all of those fixed costs that are going to burden our business or any business. And one of the things that's beneficial in having a fixed cost of rent is, unlike an e-commerce business that may have low rent or no rent, we have natural advertising that comes from the brick and mortar locations, and that helps to offset some of those fixed costs with a different profile of the advertising that you need to spend. And so perhaps an e-commerce business has lower rent, but perhaps they have significantly more advertising and marketing expenses to drive traffic to their website, to drive traffic to their business. And so there is a real asset that some of the fixed expenses provide. And we've seen that firsthand, to my point earlier, with King of Prussia, which is a larger and more expensive location, just naturally drives more revenue because of the visibility it provides. And so what does it cost us in a week? You can spread the fixed costs pretty quickly from the FTD and see what your break-even point is. We're really blessed that we're able to run this business even during our slower weeks at break-even or better. And so we really focus on what does it give us the opportunity for? And it gives us a tremendous opportunity to build a beautiful space where people can come together and gather. And we've seen that drive strong financial profiles for our businesses because of the fixed infrastructure we've made the investments into.
I'll add, so there's one major cost that we look to control. There's some costs you can't control. Rent is what rent is. Electricity is going to be what it is. Water is going to be what it is. And cost of goods sold is pretty much going to be what it is. The nice thing about in this business for cost of goods sold is wax, wicks, vessels, they don't deteriorate. Unlike the food business that has spoilage or waste, you have to be pretty good at managing your cost of goods sold, because if you order too many French fries or you cook too many steaks or lobsters, you have to throw that away at the end of the evening. But we have 2 100-pound wax melters that are fired up all the time. And if we load them up with wax and we don't use them today, we can use them tomorrow. We don't have to throw that wax away. So cost of goods sold is very controllable. We can order on a weekly basis. So the amount of cash that you have to put into inventory really just supports a few weeks ahead of time versus having to load a lot of money into cost of goods sold. But the area that we look to control is labor. And so if you look at the food industry, labor might be as high as 35% of revenue. And in our business, we have one full-time employee managing our stores, and the rest are part-time employees. They're hourly employees. And so we look to schedule appropriately. And because of our reservation system allows us to know how many guests we have coming, our manager can schedule appropriately so that we can control. And our labor ranges somewhere around 12 to 15% of revenue, unlike the food industry.
And the big differentiator there is, in the food industry, you need a host, you need someone in the kitchen, you need bussers to clear the tables. You need all of this additional team infrastructure that are not touching revenue. They're not the servers taking care of the guests. And in our business, with a simpler operation, no real food prep or a ton of work behind the scenes, we're able to have all of our employees connected to revenue as they're taking care of the guests.
Makes sense. Yeah. I really love the part about no wastage compared to the food industry, which means this might be a very lucrative business to the up and coming founders who are listening to this. Since you made the decision to go for a franchise now, that means that you have to have your unit economics very clean to hand it over to someone else and replicate this experience. So how confident are you that this model is actually that well figured out that it's going to be very well replicated at a franchise?
So I think there's two questions in there. One is how confident do you feel about the unit economics of the business and how clean is the P&L that you're reporting? And then two is how confident are you in the ability for franchisees to replicate and execute? And so with the first one, we feel really confident in the numbers we're reporting and the way we're organizing data because we started this business, Dave and I, with the vision that it would be franchised. And so what that means is in private equity, especially in the part of the market where you're acquiring smaller family-owned businesses, you often see a lot of business owners perhaps running personal expenses through their P&L, or there are things that are commingled. And because we knew we wanted to franchise this, because we knew we were going to publish an FDD with our financials, we focused on keeping the P&L really, really clean from the very beginning. And so for that reason, we feel really comfortable and confident in the numbers that we're able to report and disclose. And if you looked at the FDD, we try to provide a lot of transparency into the financial data. And then the question is, how replicatable is the business? And we feel that we've set this up in a way so that it is turnkey, with an asterisk being turnkey for someone who's going to step in and work the business. I think you see more and more in franchising folks that are advertising their franchise system as a turnkey business that you can keep your 9-to-5 job and operate on the side. And we feel because we're focused on building community hubs, focused on building spaces where friends gather and come together, the person who owns the business and who operates the business, the more connected they are within that community, the more of an impact they're going to have on their community, on their business, and on their P&L. And so for someone who's looking to be in and around the business, we feel the systems, the processes, and the playbooks Dave described really give them a solution that becomes very easy to operate and execute. But I think whether it's our business or franchising, for someone to step in generally to a business that they never spend any time in, it's always going to be a bit more difficult to run and operate. I'm sure in the interviews you've done and the businesses you've evaluated, I'm sure that's a common theme through just business ownership generally. So we feel the P&L is really clean, and we feel like the business ops are very manageable to run, with the caveat that the person running them cares about the business, cares about the community, and is really connected that way.
The other part of the confidence comes from the fact that candles have been around for a long time, and there's a large community that just loves candles. But when you look at what markets are growing, one of the markets that's growing is the experiential market. So there's the painting, there's the pottery, let's go throw axes at a wall. Let's do something together. And looking at you, I'm guessing at your age, what generation you're in, the younger generations today are all about creating experiences. And so it's a growing market. And one thing that COVID showed us, when you couldn't go to a wedding, you couldn't go to a funeral, you weren't allowed in the United States, you couldn't go out to a restaurant. And then when COVID started dying off and ended, we saw a rush back to people doing things together. And so I believe it's part of our DNA is we want to come together and we want to be with each other and we want to create experiences. So a lot of people, they live life with a little device, but that doesn't satisfy the need to come together. I connected with you through a text message, but it's different coming together to create an experience. So we see a lot of people come in with bottles of wine just to have a great time. And again, candles really for me is a metaphor just to support, well, why are we coming together? Well, we're going to come together to do something together. And then they have these 2 candles. Each candle has a 40 to 50 hour burn time. And so they've created something that's part of the memory that they get to take home with them.
So you said that you are in the hospitality business and not in the candle business. So one thing out of curiosity that occurred to me is that if you woke up tomorrow and candles were suppose obsolete, then what is the core of this business that stays exactly the same?
The core of the business, whether it's candles or anything else, is something that's not going out of fashion anytime soon, which is spending quality time with the people that matter most. And that's at the core of what we're providing, is a third space for people to come together and spend that really quality time. The thing that's nice about our business, there's 2 things that feed into that. One is you can't be on your phone or distracted while you're making candles. You have to be focused and in the moment. So we really want to create something that focuses on being present. And two, you don't have to have any artistic talent to make an amazing candle. We've handled all of the science and the setup so that you as a customer or a guest in our store get to come in, follow the instructions, and you leave with an amazing smelling candle. Where that's different is you look at some of the experiences like going golfing together, and you have to be somewhat athletic or a golfer to do that. If you want to do pottery or painting, you have to have a bit of artistic background to make something that looks really good. And the nice thing about candle making is it's inclusive for everyone. So the team building, the date nights, the birthday parties, everyone is going to have a great time, and they're going to be able to use the products that they make. And so if candles became obsolete and we needed to continue the business with a different medium, focusing on that third space where people come together, are present with one another, and spend quality time together while doing something that's non-competitive so that it's inclusive for all, feels like what the focus would be.
I really like the word you use for this. Does take your mind off things and brings you together to experience them and create a core memory with your family and your friends. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you right now that your financial data is telling you the truth about how this business is actually doing?
So I'm a CPA. I'm a retired CPA. Kenny comes from the private equity world. He loves numbers. I love numbers. And so the financial statements really are a report card of how the business is doing. So that doesn't mean that the numbers are always saying we're doing perfectly, but we rely upon the numbers to give us information to tell us where should we be spending some time. And so an area that you haven't asked questions about is marketing. And so, every business survives based upon traffic into the space if you're brick and mortar. And so we spend a lot of time not just looking at the financial statements as a report card, but also our advertising and marketing spend. How is that teaching us? What are we learning from that data that will help us get more traffic into the stores? And that also allows us to understand how can we help our franchisees get more traffic in the store. But we look at numbers a lot. We have friends and other business owners that we talk to, and they'll say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's they're so focused on the hospitality part or on the product part of the business that they're ignoring the numbers. We allow the numbers to guide our energy to improve traffic into the store and improve revenue.
That's actually a part of why I thought that Cork and Candles is going to be the best guest on this show, because that's what I wanted other founders to hear, that how, yes, there is an idea behind the business, there is a core principle that is driving you to build a business, but then profitability is very important to keep you going and to keep your employees going. So you're right, numbers should be looked at the first thing when making decisions, when moving forward with the business. So thank you so much for adding to that. To wrap up, for the founders listening to this who are actually pulling the wagon right now, and if they want to build something that lasts this long and builds a legacy, what is the one piece of advice you'd give them about about building a business that is both financially rigorous and deeply personal?
So I'll tell you, so I have an immense amount of respect for my son, his intelligence and his ability to peel back the onion and look at the business. And one thing that Kenny is really good at is finding a way to build a business so that the business isn't working you, but the business is working for you. And so we read a lot of books. One of the books that a lot of the area Kenny focuses on is how do I buy back my time? And so sometimes you can get so focused on growing revenue that you just throw yourself at the business. You just keep throwing if I just work harder, and we want to work smarter, not harder. We want the business to work for us. And so I would say some advice to someone building a business is to be careful that you spend your time in the right places so that you have good people working for you, you have systems working for you, rather than you're the person that has to do everything. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you can't replicate is time. And in a blink of an eye, time is going to pass by. And you want to say that you built something that worked for you rather than you gave your life to the business. In fact, we had a woman come into our store a week ago, And she said something that I thought could be a bumper sticker. She said her husband worked himself to death, and then he died of a heart attack in his office. And and now at age 60, she's given her life to her career. She's given her life to raising three daughters on her own. But now she wants to do something for herself. And so we want to invite people in that we can help them develop a lifestyle as a business owner that only being a business owner can offer, versus if you're an employee, you're constantly trading your time for more money, and you can't trade enough time for enough money. You need to build an asset that's going to build an income stream to you. And so I would say looking at how you spend your time is really important.
That was actually very well said. Thank you so much for that. Kenny, would you like to add anything to?
Yeah, I think Dan Martell, who wrote the book, Buy Back Your Time, really focused on some of what Dave just said, which is if you build a business that you are constantly working, you have no days off, the business relies 100% on you, and if you stepped away, it would fail. You are the worst employer in the world. And so why would you work for yourself in that situation? And so as you build something, if you really want it to have legacy and to last, it can't be solely reliant on you. And there are moments in the business where without you, it would break. But there needs to be a focus on, as I'm building things and doing different parts of the business, I have to be constantly evaluating, what can I delegate? What can I trust to someone else? What can I rely on other people for? And unfortunately, not every business, most of the businesses you're going to talk to aren't going to have the benefit of venture capital backing or private equity money that gives them this long runway to go and build. No, most of businesses are bootstrapped, which means you have to manage cash flow, which means it all comes back to profitability. But it has to be balanced with finding ways to step out of the lower value, repetitive, menial tasks, being able to delegate those things for two reasons. One, it gives you as the business owner and the founder the ability to focus on more high impact, meaningful parts of the business. And two, it allows you to buy back your time in a way that allows you to spend it either on those high impact things or on the high impact life things, doing the things you want to do, living the life you want to live, spending it with the people that matter most to you. And so buy back your time has been a core focus as Dave and I have built this business, because we are looking to build the systems and the frameworks and the playbooks that we can hand to the franchisees that gives them a head start on buying back their time as they build their business.
That's really thoughtful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dave and Kenny. And thank you so much again for taking out the time to speak with me. It's not often that you meet a founding team that can balance the emotional weight of a family legacy with such cold, hard discipline of delivering on a business. I would like to spread this word and have other founders understand that how to build with profitability. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Profit Audit. A huge thanks to Dave and Kenny Straub for jumping on the line with me today and being so transparent. If you enjoyed the deep dive, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time.